The call came at 11:41 p.m. Uncle, I'm alone. I'm starving. Please, please don't hang up. For a split second, I thought it was a dream. Then the thunder cracked, sharp and near, and the tiny voice on the phone trembled like a dying radio signal. Uncle Nate, Mommy said not to call you, but please. Every cell in my body turned to ice. I didn't even grab my wallet. Just the car keys, my jacket, and the aluminum bat leaning near the door. By the time I hit the driveway, rain was coming down sideways, angry, hard, relentless. Suburbia looked so harmless in the daylight. White fences, Halloween decorations still hanging in mid-December, cheerful porch lights glowing like safety beacons. But tonight it all looked wrong. Every house on the block shone bright except one, their house. My brother Ethan's. My 6-year-old niece's voice had come from that dark square in a street full of light. When I pulled up, the wipers screeched against the windshield. The driveway was empty. No SUV, no movement. Just the gutter overflowing and the sound of the storm chewing at the shingles. The porch light was off, the curtains drawn tight. The Ring doorbell blinked red but didn't glow. No motion, no sound. Where are you in the house? I asked, my voice shaking despite myself. Closet, she whispered. Mommy said if I open the pantry again, I have to stay in the dark until Daddy gets home. Her little voice cracked. Uncle, I can't feel my tummy. Those words split something open in me. I hit record on my phone, shoved it in my pocket, and moved fast around the side of the house. The gate was locked. I climbed it anyway, boots sinking into mud on the other side. My brother's dog, usually a barking alarm system, was silent. That silence was worse than any growl. I reached the back door. Deadbolt, cheap keybox lock. I'd seen enough of those broken open on DIY videos to know what to do. 2 hits with the bat, hard, and the metal snapped. The alarm didn't sound. It blinked weakly, red light flashing like a dying heart. I froze. Something about that felt wrong. Systems like that didn't fail. They were turned off. Keep talking to me, I said softly. Say my name so I can follow your voice. Uncle Nate, she breathed. It's so cold. The sound came from deep in the hallway. I flicked the light switch. Nothing. Tried again. Flicker. Then a dim, yellow light buzzed alive. The kitchen looked like it hadn't been lived in for weeks. The sink was empty. The counters bare except for a single bottle of wine and 2 glasses. But what stopped me was the pantry door. It had a padlock. A thick steel padlock. On a pantry, my stomach twisted. The fridge door creaked open with a moan. Inside, 1 slice of cheese, a jar of mustard, half a ketchup bottle. No leftovers, no milk, nothing. I moved toward the hallway, flashlight from my phone cutting through the dark. Family photos lined the wall. Ethan with that politician smile, Brooke, his wife, always camera ready, her teeth perfect, her eyes cold. And their daughter, my niece, frozen in each frame, looking like she'd been forced to smile. The kind of smile that disappears the second the flash goes off. Her voice came again, faint, close. In here, Uncle. The last door on the right. I turned the knob, pushed it open, nothing but darkness and the soft sound of breath. My flashlight beam found her. She was curled up in the corner of a closet, knees to her chest, clutching a dead phone like a stuffed toy. Her hair was tangled, her sweatshirt stained, her bare feet pale and red from the cold. The moment she saw me, her little body started shaking harder, not from fear, but relief. Hey, I whispered, kneeling. You're okay now. I've got you. I wrapped her in my jacket and lifted her into my arms. She felt too light, too small. Then headlights. A harsh beam splashed across the living room wall. Tires screeched in the driveway. Doors slammed. Voices, Brooke's shrill and breaking, and Ethan's deeper, commanding. Stay quiet, I told her. The front door burst open before I could even move. 2 cops entered behind them like a flood, guns drawn, eyes wide. Hands where we can see them! I froze, raising my hands slowly, still holding her against my chest. Her tiny fingers clung to my shirt, trembling. Brooke pointed at me, her face twisted into a perfect mask of horror. He broke in and took our daughter. The words hit like gunfire. What? I said, stunned. She called me. She was alone. But the officers weren't listening. One grabbed my arm, spinning me around. The cold click of handcuffs bit into my wrists. I tried to speak, but Brooke's voice drowned me out, fake sobs echoing through the hall. The girl buried her face into my neck, whispering so softly I almost didn't catch it. "Don't let them put me back in the dark, Uncle, please." I looked at the officer cuffing me. His flashlight swept the kitchen as he guided me toward the door. For a split second, the beam hit the pantry, glinting off the padlock. He paused, just a moment, stared at it, then turned his light away. The cuffs tightened. My niece screamed as they pulled me outside. Rain pounded the pavement. The neighbor's curtains twitched. Sirens wailed somewhere distant. And through it all, her small voice kept echoing inside my skull. Don't let them put me back in the dark. That was the night everything broke. And the moment I realized, someone wanted the truth to stay locked away, just like that pantry door. The buzzing lights in the interrogation room sounded like angry bees trapped behind glass. Cold metal table. One chair for me, one for him. Officer L. Whitaker. His badge gleamed. His expression didn't. He clicked his pen, steady and slow, the rhythm of a man who already thought he knew the truth. "You admit," he said, eyes on his notes, "that you entered the residence without permission." I leaned forward, my wrists sore where the cuffs had been. I called 911 on the way there. Welfare check. My niece told me she was alone and starving. I recorded everything. My voice cracked at the end, not from guilt, from exhaustion. Whitaker didn't look impressed. He slid a glossy photo across the table. It was a still from the Ring camera on the porch, rain streaking down, me in the frame, bat in hand, pushing past the gate. "This," he said flatly, "is forced entry." "No," I said, pointing at the photo. "This is a child begging for help." "That's what you're looking at." His jaw tightened. "The parents say she was in a timeout. She threw food. They claim you've had disagreements." That word made me want to laugh. Disagreements. Like I'd argued about politics, not about a 6-year-old being locked away. "Call it what it is," I said. "Abuse." Before he could answer, the door opened and a woman stepped in, early 40s, professional but human. CPS badge clipped to her blazer. Her eyes looked tired, but there was fire behind them. "Detective Whitaker," she said. "I need to speak with the child." 15 minutes later, they escorted me to a small office down the hall. The air smelled like coffee and wet coats. My niece sat in a chair that looked too big for her, my jacket wrapped around her shoulders. Her feet didn't touch the floor. Ethan and Brooke were there too. Picture perfect again, like they'd rehearsed their tragedy in the parking lot. Brooke's tears were turned off now, replaced with that icy smirk I remembered from every Thanksgiving fight. Ethan stood beside her, arms crossed, radiating self-righteousness. The CPS worker crouched in front of my niece. "Sweetheart," she said softly, "can you tell me what happened tonight?" My niece looked at me first. Those brown eyes flicked up, asking if she could trust anyone in the room. I nodded once, slow. That tiny gesture seemed to lift her spine. "Mommy said I was greedy," she said finally. Her voice trembled but didn't break. "So I had to be wholly empty." She drew small circles in the air with her finger, mimicking the ritual. "We do fasting so God is proud. Daddy locks the snack so I don't make Jesus sad." The silence that followed wasn't silence at all. It was the sound of the entire room realizing this wasn't a bedtime story gone wrong. It was a pattern. The CPS worker's pen scratched fast across her notepad. Even Whitaker blinked, the first real crack in his poker face. Ethan snapped, "We're Christians, not criminals." I didn't look at him. Instead, I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. One tap, and the recorded call played out loud, her whispering from the closet, the fear, the storm outside. The air grew colder with every second of playback. When it ended, the CPS worker looked at the officers. "Emergency placement," she said immediately. "Tonight," the order came fast after that. Brooke tried to argue, claiming bias, screaming about defamation. Ethan cursed me out under his breath, but none of it mattered. Within the hour, my niece was placed temporarily with Mrs. Gill, the neighbor 2 doors down, a sweet, retired teacher with a foster license and a spine of steel. As they prepared to leave, my niece shuffled toward me. The police still wouldn't let me hug her, but she reached out her hand, small and trembling. She pressed something into my palm, a crumpled drawing. 3 stick figures stood under a storm. One tall, one small, one with a question mark above its head, a house behind them with crooked windows and heavy rain. The small figure had her name. The tall one said, "Uncle." The third one, the one with the question mark, made my stomach twist. "Why the question mark?" I whispered. She looked at me, eyes too old for 6 years. "Because the wall says it's you." "What wall?" I asked, but the CPS worker was already leading her out. "The secret one," she murmured before disappearing down the hall. That phrase clung to me like static, the secret wall. When the officers finally released me, the phantom of the cuffs still burned into my skin. I stepped into the rain, the kind that feels personal, cold and relentless. Across the parking lot, Ethan's SUV idled, headlights glowing through the downpour. He rolled the window down just enough for his face to show. "You always wanted to be the hero," he said. His voice was calm, too calm. "Let's see how you do in court." Then the window slid up and the SUV pulled away, taillights bleeding red across the wet pavement. I stood there, drenched, heartbeat echoing in my ears. The world had turned upside down. The cops thought I was the intruder. My brother and his wife had twisted the truth so tightly it choked. And somewhere in that dark house, there was a wall whispering my name. I didn't go home. Not yet. Some instinct, maybe the same one that drove me to that house, told me to walk past it one more time. Just one look before dawn. When I reached the backyard fence, the rain had eased into mist. The trash cans lined up like sentries. My flashlight cut through the fog, and there, behind the bins, the beam caught something strange. A line in the siding. A seam that didn't belong. Too straight, too deliberate. A wall, but not part of the original house. And for the first time that night, I felt the kind of fear that doesn't make you run. It makes you stay. Because you realize the truth isn't waiting to be found. It's been watching you the whole time. The secret wall was real. And whatever it hid, it had my name on it. Morning came like a bad apology. Gray, cold, and too quiet for a street that had just swallowed a storm. I didn't sleep. The images of that locked pantry, that trembling child, and that silent cop replayed until the lines blurred. By 6 a.m., I was driving to Home Depot. Men like me always end up there when something's broken. A faucet, a fence, or your entire understanding of family. I bought a cheap stud finder, a crowbar, a roll of gloves, and a flashlight bright enough to burn the truth out of shadows. When I pulled back into the cul-de-sac, everything looked too neat. The kind of calm that only exists when something's been carefully arranged to look normal. A few houses away, a flag still fluttered from the last holiday. Ethan's place looked dead again. Curtains drawn, blinds angled like defenses. I stayed on the public sidewalk, scanning the siding through the fence slats, pretending to look for a lost ring. The stud finder beeped faintly when I passed over one section near the trash cans. A hollow space. Too perfect to be accidental. Then I saw it, half buried in mud near the foundation, a small black SD card. It caught a glint of light and winked at me like it knew I'd come. Coincidence? No, I don't believe in those anymore. I believe in patterns, in the kind that twist through families like vines under drywall. I slipped the card into a plastic bag, heart hammering, and drove home without daring to breathe too loud. Back in my apartment, I locked the door, shut the blinds, and slid the card into my laptop. The screen blinked. Then folders appeared, and dozens of them. Cam Pantry 01 MP4, Cam Pantry 02 MP4. My stomach dropped. I clicked one. The footage played in silence. The pantry door padlocked. A tripod in the corner. Brooke walked into frame in yoga pants and a cardigan, holding a spiral notebook labeled Fasting Chart. She smiled at the camera, that cold, Instagram-perfect smile, and set a timer. Then Ethan appeared, twisting the lock on the pantry door. My niece's small hand reached out from the corner of the frame. She wasn't crying, not this time. She just stared at the food inside, her eyes blank, her lips moving in silent words I couldn't hear. Brooke mouthed something toward the lens before leaving. I rewound and zoomed in. The words were clear. Discipline, she said. There were dozens of these clips. Same ritual, different days. Sometimes Brooke brought her Bible and read out verses. Sometimes Ethan paced the kitchen, muttering about obedience and respect. And sometimes my niece just sat there, motionless, her head tilted, the timer ticking in the background like a countdown to nothing. Then another folder caught my eye. Garage wall. My pulse spiked. I clicked it open. The video was shaky, shot from a hidden corner. A narrow alcove behind what looked like a false panel. Inside, a cot, a thin blanket, a bucket, and a corkboard covered in papers. One was a family tree, printed and scrawled over in red ink. My name, Nathaniel Reed, circled in marker. A red string connected my name to my niece's. Beneath it, one word in black, Father. My throat closed. I froze, unable to blink as the video played on. Brooke entered the hidden room holding scissors. She started cutting a document, a birth certificate, into thin ribbons. Ethan stood behind her with a lighter. He set the edges on fire, then shoved the ashes into a metal bin. They both laughed quietly. I paused the video and sat back, trying to breathe. There was no way. No reality where that word, Father, it made sense. And yet, in that moment, something in me cracked open. The same eyes, the same quiet stare. I'd always seen myself in her, but I'd dismissed it. Now, I wasn't sure what was reflection and what was truth. I backed up the footage immediately, twice. Then I dug deeper. Another subfolder, Texts Backup. I opened it. A chat thread labeled Pastor J. Brooke again. Her messages made my skin crawl. We're increasing the fast and it's working. She obeys when she's empty. He's a threat. He remembers too much. Don't worry. Choe Keen has the notary ready. If Nate pushes, we bury him under restraining orders. That was it, the whole machine. The religion, the HOA president, the forged documents, the abuse. A perfect suburban cult disguised as a Christian family. I drove straight to Mrs. Gill's. She opened the door before I could knock, eyes heavy but kind. She slept through the night, she said softly. When she wasn't, she was drawing again. I looked down. My niece sat at the kitchen table, coloring with slow, careful strokes. When she saw me, she smiled. A tiny, hesitant smile that hit me harder than any punch. She pushed the drawing toward me. It was a house just like before, but this time there was a small door drawn in the wall. Inside it, in shaky letters, one word, Dad. I felt the world tilt. By noon, we were in family court. The room was colder than the rain had been. Lawyers lined up like vultures, papers stacked like ammunition. CPS presented their findings. I handed over the SD card, every duplicate, every timestamp. Ethan's lawyer smirked. Your Honor, this footage is fabricated. My client will be countersuing for unlawful entry and emotional distress. The judge's face didn't move. Then we'll test it. Ethan flinched, just barely, but I saw it. The smallest tells always betray the biggest liars. And, the judge added, given the implications of that family tree, we'll be ordering a DNA test. The words hit the room like thunder, and then I heard a chair scrape in the back. My mother, who had slipped in silently, stood up, her face pale as paper. No, she said, voice trembling. No more tests. Any reason why not? The judge asked. She turned her gaze toward me, her eyes sharp and wet. Because we already know. Every sound in the room disappeared. Ethan's jaw locked. Brooke's face went slack. My mother took a slow step forward, her hand shaking as she pointed at my brother. Tell your brother the truth, she said, her voice cracking, or I will. And in that moment I realized the secret wall wasn't just in their house. It was in our blood. We didn't even make it out of the courtroom before everything started to crack. The air in the hallway was thick, too quiet, too tense. The kind of silence that comes before someone finally tells the truth that's been rotting them from the inside. Ethan leaned against the wall, his tie loose, his expression somewhere between guilt and arrogance. He looked at me the way he used to when we were kids, that same half-smirk he wore whenever he'd broken something and wanted me to take the blame. It was the clinic, he said, voice low, calm, practiced. We had trouble conceiving. We used a donor. I stared at him, waiting for the rest, waiting for the part that made sense. Brooke crossed her arms, her red nails tapping her skin like a metronome. Don't make it dramatic, she said, rolling her eyes. It's not that deep. People do it all the time. I took a step closer. And? Ethan's throat moved as he swallowed. He looked at me, then away. And the donor was you. For a second, the floor seemed to tilt under me. The words didn't make sense. They clashed, burned, refused to fit together. What are you talking about? I asked. Brooke's smirk sharpened. Your insurance loved your profile. Healthy, educated, clean record. It kept it, in the family. Everyone wins. I never donated to them, I said, my voice low. Not to us, Brooke replied. To a bank, remember? College days? Quick money, no consequences. The clinic mixed things up, or maybe they didn't. Science gets messy. She leaned in close enough for me to smell the peppermint gum she always used to hide the cheap wine on her breath. Either way, congratulations. You're the father. My stomach turned. My mother's voice broke through from behind us, a whisper, trembling, terrified. Stop it. She was gripping her purse so tight her knuckles had gone white. Tell him the real reason. Brooke turned toward her slowly, her eyes gleaming with something cruel. He deserves to know everything. She looked back at me. Your father's will, the one you never read, it left everything, the house, the trust, the insurance, to the first grandchild of the male line. Old-fashioned and sexist as hell, but very useful. She smiled wider. We made sure that grandchild was yours. We made sure the money stayed in the bloodline, and we made sure you'd never be close enough to contest it. The world around me started to pulse. My heart, my vision, the sound of her words, why all one steady pounding beat. You used me, I whispered. She tilted her head. Don't act like a martyr. It was paperwork, not witchcraft. The courtroom door opened behind us. A man in a gray suit approached. Small eyes, nervous smile, voice slick as oil. Mr. Reed? He asked softly. I represent the clinic involved in this. Misunderstanding. There may be a way to resolve things quietly. A generous settlement, perhaps, provided we avoid public spectacle. Public spectacle? I said, barely containing a laugh. There's a child in this. He adjusted his tie, lowering his voice. Children are resilient. For one brief second, I wanted to hit him. Instead, I walked past him, each step heavier than the last. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the sky still hung low and heavy, like it wanted to finish what the storm started. In the parking lot, a white SUV idled. The window rolled down halfway. HOA President Keene, the man with the permanent smirk of authority, sat inside, his notary stamp hanging from a lanyard around his neck like a badge of honor. Careful, Mr. Reed, he called. Slander travels fast in this neighborhood. I met his gaze, unflinching. Good, I said. I hope it travels farther than you do. He smirked again, rolling the window up without a word. I didn't realize how hard I was gripping the steering wheel until my fingers started to ache. I drove halfway home before I noticed it. The brake pedal went soft. Too soft. My car slowed unevenly, wobbling toward the curb. I yanked the emergency brake, tires squealing, heart punching against my ribs. I stopped just in time in front of a grocery store. The mechanic from the muffler shop next door crouched beside my car, flashlight in hand. A few minutes later, he rolled out from underneath, face grim. Lines cut, he said. Clean cut. Not wear and tear, cut, not broken, not an accident. A message. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my desk with every piece of evidence spread out. The SD card, the screenshots, the texts, the family tree with my name circled in red. Then I opened my laptop and posted everything. Every photo, every document, every timestamp. I blurred what I needed to, but not much. The world needed to see the truth raw, unedited. The pantry lock, the fasting charts, the corkboard that connected my name to my niece's. I filed for emergency custody first thing in the morning. I hired a lawyer who didn't smile, didn't promise, just worked. I emailed the footage to 3 reporters I still trusted, the kind of journalists who chased truth long after it stopped paying the bills. And I sent copies to my mother. The message I wrote her was short. You knew. Her reply came at 2:17 a.m. It was one line. We didn't just know, she wrote. We planned it. For a long time, I just stared at the screen, unable to move. Then a notification popped up, an attachment. I clicked it. A scanned letter appeared. It was dated 7 years ago. Signed by Ethan. Signed by Brooke. Signed by my mother and father. Witnessed and notarized by HOA President Keene. The title read, in black ink, Provision Strategy for Ensuring Male Line Grandchild. My vision blurred. The words swam. The room tilted again. They hadn't just used me. They'd conspired, documented it, sealed it with legal ink, a contract written in greed and betrayal. And somewhere in that signature pile, my niece, my daughter, was written in as a profit margin. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there in the dark, the glow of the screen lighting up every lie my family had ever told. The rain started again outside, soft at first, then hard, then furious. and as thunder rolled across the sky, one thought cut through it all. If blood was the currency that bound us, then I was done paying. The internet has a strange sense of justice. When it finally listens, it doesn't whisper. It screams. By the next morning, my phone was vibrating nonstop. Reporters, detectives, strangers. The video footage I'd released, the fasting rituals, the forged documents, the fake faith, spread like wildfire. Within 24 hours, the story had a name. The fasting family scandal. People found everything. Brooks posts on a miracle parenting forum. The pastor's blog about obedience through deprivation. HOA President Keene's online ads promising quiet notary work, no questions asked. Even the clinic's hidden legal settlements surfaced, each one signed with the same initials, BR. The machine they'd built to hide the truth was collapsing, fast. Sponsors pulled out of Ethan's church committee. The clinic's lawyers went silent. CPS called before sunrise. They wanted an emergency hearing. I barely slept. I sat on the couch, my niece's small form curled against me, her fingers gripping my shirt even in sleep. When the alarm buzzed, I didn't need it. I'd already decided. Whatever happened, I wasn't letting her go back to that house. Court was colder than ever. Rain beat against the windows like it was trying to get in. My mother sat on the witness bench, wrapped in a cardigan so soft it looked like guilt itself. She looked smaller, older, broken by the kind of truth that doesn't just haunt you. It owns you. The judge's voice was steady. "Mrs. Reed, you're under oath. Tell us what you know about this document." He held up the notarized plan, provision strategy for ensuring male line grandchild. My mother's eyes filled, her lips trembling. "The will was cruel," she whispered. "Your father wrote it in a mean year. We had pressure, debt. Ethan had a plan. Brooke had the stomach. Keene had the stamp. When the clinic offered options, we took them." "What kind of options?" The judge pressed, her gaze turned toward Brooke, sharp as glass. "They didn't mix up the samples," she said. Brooke bribed an embryologist. She picked Nathaniel's profile on purpose, so the inheritance would count. "Liar!" Brooke shouted from the table, her voice cracking like glass under heat. But the clinic lawyer didn't lift his head. His silence said everything. "And the fasting?" the judge asked, his voice dry and brittle. My mother broke. Her shoulders shook. "We told ourselves it was faith," she sobbed. "We pretended it was holy so it wouldn't feel like abuse. So we could sleep." The courtroom held its breath. My niece sat beside a social worker in the corner, a stuffed bear pressed against her chest. She didn't cry. She didn't blink. She just watched, calm, still, too knowing for her age. Children learn the shape of evil long before adults admit it exists. Then the reporter I'd been working with approached me in the hallway. Rain hammered the glass outside like a warning. She handed me a small flash drive. "You missed one file," she said. "Garage wall 014. I found a quiet stairwell and watched it on my phone. The footage opened on that hidden room. The cot, the cracked plaster, the corkboard of lies. My niece was there, curled up, tiny and pale, and kneeling beside her was Ms. Ramirez, the babysitter from next door, the woman who died 6 months ago from what they called heart failure. In the video, she smiled softly, tears shining in her tired eyes. "If they forget you again," she whispered, sliding a cracked phone into a plastic lunchbox. "Press Uncle. I saved it under a little star." The girl nodded, clutching the box. "He'll come?" Ms. Ramirez pressed her forehead to hers. "He will come." The timestamp burned into my screen. 1 week before Ms. Ramirez died. That's how it happened. That's how a dying woman gave a child a way out. That's how a 6-year-old called through a storm and saved herself. Back in court, I handed the flash drive to the judge. No speeches, no words. Just proof. The silence afterward was heavier than thunder. Brooke started shouting about conspiracies, about faith, about being misunderstood. Ethan just sat there, hollow-eyed, watching the life he'd built on lies crumble around him. Keene tried to stand, mumbling about procedural errors, but the judge's gavel silenced him before he could finish. Then came the verdict. "Temporary custody is awarded to Mr. Reed," the judge said. "Pending full investigation," Brooke screamed. Ethan crumbled. Keene looked like he wanted to melt into his chair. The clinic lawyer asked for a recess that never came. My daughter, looked at me and smiled. Outside, the sky broke open again. The storm that had started it all came back one last time, washing the courthouse steps clean. She slipped her small hand into mine like it had always belonged there. "Uncle," she said softly. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Yeah? Can I call you Dad now?" The words cut through me, sharp, beautiful, final. I nodded, voice cracking. "Yes," I whispered. "Please, we walked to my car together." The brakes held this time, solid and sure. For the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. That night, Ethan texted me, "You stole my family." I didn't reply. I sat beside my daughter's bed, watching her sleep, her chest rising and falling like calm waves after a long storm. The house was quiet, safe, whole. Days turned into weeks. The internet kept roaring. Interviews, headlines, lawsuits. The clinic collapsed. The HOA president retired for health reasons. My mother left 3 voicemails I couldn't bring myself to play. There would be hearings, therapy, years of rebuilding. But the truth had finally broken free, and once truth breathes, it never dies. Sometimes, when rain lashes the windows at night, I still hear her first words echoing through the dark. I'm alone. I'm starving. It's not a memory anymore. It's a vow. I remember the padlocked pantry, the false wall, the red string connecting her name to mine. I remember the woman who planted hope like a seed inside a lunchbox. And every time thunder rolls across the sky, I whisper back, "You're never alone again." A month later, I was cleaning out the garage when I found one last box of papers. Old notarized contracts, brittle and yellow. On top, a sticky note in Brooke's slanted handwriting. "If Nate fights, fast her longer." I didn't read another word. I burned it in the sink and watched the flame devour every page until nothing was left but gray ash. And as the smoke rose, I heard laughter from the hallway. Light, free, the kind that only children make when they finally feel safe. That sound wasn't just laughter. It was judgment. It was forgiveness. It was the beginning.